I am super ecstatic to introduce you to two of my all-time favorite guests who have become favorite friends and colleagues of mine as well, who are going to bring a world of brilliant conversation to the discussion today. So thank you so much for joining, and I'd like to introduce Alicia Cornell and Kim Lamontagne to the show. Hi, ladies. Thank you so much. And I am going to have them introduce themselves to you and a little bit about the work that they do. Start with Kim.
Sure. So thank you so much for having me on today. It's a pleasure to be here with you and with Alicia. My name is Kim Lamontagne, and I am tuning in today from Massachusetts. I'm originally from Florida, and I teach individuals, or I teach leaders, how to create a culture of safety in the workplace that focuses on empowering employees to speak openly about mental health and well-being in the workplace. And I do that through a brand new corporate curriculum that I've developed called the 4 Pillars of Creating and Sustaining a Mentally Healthy Workplace Culture. With COVID-19 and all the behavioral health issues and stressors, now is the time that we must really talk about having a culture of safety in the workplace around mental health and well-being. So it's great to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. And Alicia?
Yes, so my name is Alicia Cornell, and I am a clinical consultant. I specialize in improving healthcare strategy. I really, really love and have taken an interest in complex teams and rebuilding dysfunctional teams and looking at their operational workflows and really adjusting. And like as Kim said too, really digging deep into how's everyone's behavior? What does that look like? Because you can't grow if you don't know. And so that's really what I build a foundation on also to help teams get better.
Awesome. I love it. And for those of you that are tuning in and watching, please drop a note. Tell us hello, where you are calling in from or signing in from. And let us know if you have any questions throughout the show, and we'll go ahead and, ask some questions out to the group. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And, I would just love to start off, because when we talk about creating professional partnerships, especially during COVID, what does that mean to you guys? What does that look like?
So I love the term partnership. It actually, to me, really defines how are you going to interact with another person or group of people. So I feel like when, as a nurse, and I entered into corporate as a nurse, my behaviors were very much to treat all of my teammates like family, which is a great thing. But a downside of doing that is when you treat people like your family, that means that you love them and you really treat them like your family. And there needs to be a boundary. And so I love the word partnership to help people develop that professional boundary. And I looked at it as a way of we are doing business together. We are connecting for the purpose of business and having a partnership, which means my focus then became very tunneled in the fact that I needed to view people as a business person, as an entity, and then decide how would I partner with you, and so that we can produce good work instead of really paying attention to, like I do with my family, well, this person is like this, you can't say this. And so you create these unrealistic reality in your workplace. But when you see someone as a partner and you're looking at them as a professional partnership, then you approach them, your intention is set to handle them as a professional and be respectful as a professional.
I love that too. And I love the way that you phrase that, because you oftentimes, when you look at nurses in the workforce, they talk about how they're a big family, but sometimes you're right, the boundaries do get crossed, because there's that time where you have to be personal and have to be professional. And sometimes it's hard to cross that. And you will end up having more value in each other, it sounds like, and more credibility as a partner with each other, right?
I definitely think so. And when you're thinking of someone as family, you're going to cross that boundary so many times. Right. And what you miss out on the opportunity to build something better or to really dig in deep and really show yourself
Right.
honestly and your skill set. Because when you come into this type of partnership in healthcare, in business, and you're thinking of that person, is very informal. So you are free to say what you want, you can do what you want, but you have to create that stop button for yourself and respect. And I know, Kim, you have a lot of work in that culture of safety, respecting that this person is a human, but we have work to do. I'm not ignoring you. I respect and accept everything you are into that space so we can work.
Kim, how do you feel, and thank you for that, Alicia, I love that. How do you think that that plays into the culture of safety in the workplace, especially now when we look at COVID?
Absolutely. And I think that I appreciate you bringing all those great points up, Alicia. And going back to, treating people like family, when I was doing my master's degree, I focused my capstone project on leadership-driven mental health campaigns in the workplace. And I worked with National Alliance on Mental Illness in their Massachusetts chapter to evaluate the outcome of their program that they had in place called CEOs Against Stigma. And why am I sharing this with you? Because within my research, there was a survey that was done in Massachusetts that had 800 Massachusetts voters. There were hundreds of questions in that survey, but there were 3 that stood out to me. Number 1 is it best to tell your family member when you are suffering with a mental illness or substance use? 92% said it was best to tell your family member. The next question is it best to tell your friend if you are suffering with a mental health or substance use issue? And the number dropped down to 76%. Here's where the kicker is. Is it best to tell your coworkers if you are suffering or living with a mental illness or substance use problem? The number dropped down to 27%.
Wow.
Now, to Alicia's point, if my leader, if my culture within my organization is like a family, and there is that fine line between leadership and family, and it's about seeing people for exactly who they are and what they represent. And I think it's just incredibly important, especially right now with COVID, that if 27% of people are feeling like it's okay to speak openly in the workplace to their coworkers, we need to get that number up. And by building that culture of safety and seeing people and meeting people where they are and supporting them along the way by giving that safe space where they can actually speak openly about mental health and well-being, that to me is paramount. And that's what leaders are able to do in the workplace today.
And what a great point. I mean, you really turned that full circle to the reality of where we're at right now. And yeah, like what are the methods? What are the key tactics that leaders are doing? And part of this is coming from what you're teaching and what you're doing out there for leaders. I just want to take a few moments to say hi to everybody who has chimed in. I see Leona Roy from the UK. Holly chimed in to say hello too. And, we would love to hear your thoughts out in the audience as well. To what, the same question of like, what are your thoughts and ideas about the culture of safety in the workplace? And, how has that impacted you with partnerships? And one of the topics I want to dive into too is looking at using social media for positive connections. So social media, as we know it, has had its take, and it's most of the times it's for negative publicity. What can we do to beat people down? Even in this pandemic, there are people attacking nurses, and it's mind-boggling to me to even grasp the idea of not trying to understand what others are going through, because we're all going through things differently. But give me an example of how could you use social media for a positive connection?
Go ahead, Kim.
Oh, I was going to say, I use social media all the time, really, to step forward, be vulnerable. I share the truth, the raw truth, my experience, and how I got through it in terms of living in silence in the workplace with the depression, the anxiety, the suicidal thoughts. Now that I'm on the other side and 11 years sober and healthy, I put my message out there in the hopes that someone will read my post and come forward. And it happens almost every single day on LinkedIn, where I was most afraid to put out my message because that's my professional network. How can I admit that I suffered in silence in the workplace? Yet every time I put out a message that really speaks about my own personal story, 99.99999% of the time, I get a direct message and say from someone who says, I appreciate you putting yourself out there. I suffer too. Let's have a conversation. So to me, that has given me the power to reach so many people who might feel like they're alone and that there's something wrong with them. So that's how I use social media.
Mm-hmm. I actually use it kind of in a similar way. I really I identify myself professionally as a brand. And when I started thinking of myself as a brand, then I had to be the CEO of me. And I had to decide, and I think this is where a lot of people struggle. You have to decide, where do you want to make those professional connections? Where do you need more intimate connections? And is there a place for you on social media to really just strip down, like you were saying, Kim, and be your naked self? And you have to decide exactly how do you categorize that and how does it flow? The three major social media apps that I use are LinkedIn, Facebook, I just started back using, and Instagram. And thinking of myself as a brand, I really wanted LinkedIn to be a place where I was amongst professionals and I get to ask questions. I get to ask questions from everybody from around the world that I don't have to. I value my time and I value the time of others. So when I'm in my workplace, I may not have an opportunity to say, well, Kim, why did you do this that way? Because everybody has their thinking helmet on and they're headed in one direction. But on LinkedIn, I get to make a connection with someone who may be in a senior leadership role, who may be a CEO. That's on my goal. That's my pathway that I want. And I'm making my blueprint and I get to ask more questions. And people are more than happy on LinkedIn, which is surprising, to say things like, hey, I don't know how I got here. I failed, a bunch of times. I just kept trying. And then looking at the other social media areas and really making sure, does that brand, how are you opening up that perspective of your brand to show your different sides? But also there is that possibility that it could be something negative that occurs, but thinking about it more proactively. And when you have that, I know Leah talked about this on our other, not Leah, Lily, if I'm not mistaken, on another show with Rose on Friday about setting an intention. And I do a lot of meditation and mindfulness to really slow my thoughts down. It started as slowing my thinking so that I could communicate better. And then it just morphed into, is this the right thing to do? Where am I going? How do I grow this? And thinking about that professional partnership and using social media, what are you going to do? And what are you going to say? That's probably the first way to think about it. None of them are negative. It is the same way we express that humans ourselves, we create this negative space by how we perceive things, our own personal experiences, things that we've been through, things that we've seen. I tend to stay away from topics that are highly controversial. Number one, I know I have a personal opinion about it. Number two, it ain't for everybody. It's just for me and, my close friends or close circle that I want to know. When you interact on social media, you have to set that positive intention. Here is what I want to do. I don't talk about politics. I don't talk about religion on social media because those are very controversial topics. Right. So really thinking about, if someone, every opportunity that I've had recently has been through a LinkedIn connection. Yes. If someone wants to work with me, and I had one of a business leader who told me one time that the best thing she learned about being in her business and how she makes her business better is because people want to work with her.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought deeply about, okay, people are judging you. You are a brand, a business. You might work for a company. You might be an independent consultant, whatever it is. But when I thought about that, I thought, what would make someone want to work with me? Vulnerability, conscientiousness, wanting to be positive, but also understanding that negative expectation. And I think when you think of it that way and you set out a plan, and there are so many people who can tell you how to get this plan together out there, but when you really start to do it and think about it like that, it can't be, and this is going to sound so backwards, it cannot be so you can get a better job. I'm sorry, it doesn't work. It never works that way. You have to say, I want to be, you don't have to say what you want. I feel like you can say, I want to be a better me. I want to improve my skill set in this area or that area. Yep. And that's what you set out to do. Because when you start to really dig deep and think about those things for yourself, people are attracted to that because you'll spill your guts more. Like Kim said, being able to share with someone, these are this and that. And I learned a lot on LinkedIn about who's a real business, who's a real connection, and what is their purpose. And I go through that, and you have to ask those questions and slow down. And that's why it's important to have that social media platform to test things and to be able to see what are people responding to. You choose. It's always your choice. What do you want to be a part of?
And you brought up such a great point about that when you're looking to network. And, I know we use the term like-mindedness a lot when we're looking at who we're going to connect with. But you're right. You choose who you're going to connect with, and your brand and the way that you present yourself online is going to attract the individuals that are going to be interested in what you have to say. And there could be a lot of synergy in that. I've met a good handful of amount of people on LinkedIn, not necessarily in the nursing field, but my God, there's so much value in what they show and they offer that you can reciprocate back either way and learn from that. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the same field that you're in, but when you put out there what you're looking for really into the universe, it comes back to you. And that's what you have to think about, how you put out there, how you do what you do and how you say, and make sure you really are in the right mindset and being very thoughtful and methodical about that approach. Because, and I'll give an example of myself several months back when I was in a bad place with, anxiety, depression, PTSD. And I was angry at the world of not taking precautions with COVID. And I went off my handle, and it became social media suicide on Facebook. And you brought up such a good point. It became political. I was talking with emotion because I was not in a good place. And it became something that it shouldn't have. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not what I meant by that. But, oh, geez, I have to take a step back. And deleting Facebook for me was probably the best decision I ever did in my life. And I still have issues. I created one about a month ago, but I'm not on it because I still get PTSD just from Facebook. And I think that brings up to your point of like, how do you build back that healthy relationship and be you presently what your purpose is? So I would love to hear thoughts from the group. I see a few more have chimed in. It looks like Leona's here. Shabnam came in as well. And she said, telling your story also helps by not being alone, to get that message out there too, because, others will respond. If they're watching it, there's a reason they're watching it. And there's an intention to that. And there's an intention to the connection. So any questions from the audience? We'd love to hear what you have to say so far in regards to the conversation. Let us know what you're thinking. And then, there's another topic that I think we brought up too. That's a great one to talk about. And that's how to manage healthy relationships using intentional listening. I love those words.
Oh, man.
And therapeutic communication. And I can't wait to dive into this with both of you because I actually use this, and I'll be talking about this in my private event when I launch my program this afternoon about intentional listening. And it's really, I talk about being a conscious leader and what that looks
Mm-hmm.
like. So you could be present, but are you really present, and what that looks like.
I love
So
that.
yeah, I'd love to hear Kim.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with you.
I think that's a great topic. I think intentional listening is incredibly important. We were given 2 ears and 1 mouth to listen more and speak less. And there's something to be said if you are an employee in the workplace and you feel safe, seen, heard, and fully understood. Because to me, there's nothing more disempowering than being in a conversation with someone and you know that they're just not listening to you. They are there, but they are not present. To me, that is, it's deflating. It's, I don't deserve the time that you're giving me. And you're not really giving me 100% to this conversation. So I think really being able to practice that ability to be able to listen with intention and to be able to respond to people based upon what their needs are, not be formulating the next question while you're waiting for this other person to finish talking. Because when employees do feel seen and they feel understood, they are much more prone to be open, to be bringing true things forward that are really bothering them that they may not be able to do it if they don't feel that safety and heard and understood. So I think listening with intention is incredibly important, and it's a topic that we all have to really focus on.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me, there was a leadership training course that I took, and it had to do with intentional listening. And it was so, I mean, you want to talk about like a moment of aha. They had somebody talking to you casually in your ear as you are supposed to be listening to somebody else, to get the feeling of you have all of these other things going on in your mind while somebody else is talking. And then they said, and then we stopped, and you say, what did that person in front of you say? Not a single person could get past maybe 1 or 2 words of what that person in front of you was talking about, because you have all of these other thoughts and things going on. And it was very interesting from a leader perspective to take a pause and say, wow, I'm really not there. And I think that, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and I think that that's so important, and especially dealing with mental health and well-being. How many times do we pass a coworker back in the day in the office and say, hey, how you doing? And the response is, I'm great. How are you? Has anyone ever taken the time to say, when you respond, to say, I'm great, how are you? Well, before I tell you how I'm doing, are you really okay? Are you really doing great? Or is there something that we need to talk about? You know, I always say that 2 of the most dangerous words in the English language are I'm fine, because that used to be my go-to response. Anytime someone said, how are you doing? I'd say, I'm fine. How are you? I was anything less than fine. And if someone really took an extra second to say, are you really fine? That extra second, that intentional listening might have been enough for my walls to come down and say, oh my gosh, no, I'm not okay. This is what's really going on. And that could have made the difference for me coming forward sooner than I did. It was my leader, it was my director in 2016 who noticed that even though I had years of sobriety, my mental health was a mess. Mm-hmm. And I covered it up by my high performance, but she figured it out, and she hopped on a plane from New Jersey, came up to Boston, and heard me and saw me and understood me throughout that entire conversation. And that is what allowed me to get back on track, her intentional listening.
Yes, that's amazing.
I love that story, Kim. And, you know, while I'm sitting here intentionally listening, there's something that when I first started really doing meditation and really practicing, it was because of the same things that you described, Noelle, anxiety, depression. When you are a nurse, and she taught me counter-transference of energy, which is a real thing. And until I was able to learn how to sit still long enough to be quiet, that included journaling, Some days when I didn't want to journal, I would do the recorder on my phone and just kind of spill my guts out there, because vulnerability is scary at first when you do it. But when we sat there, one time she asked me, she said, and I am a huge thumbs up for any type of therapy, any type of whatever you want to do to get to your point of health, being healthy, do it. And she asked me one time, she said, can I ask you a question? Because I was having a really hard day. And I was like, I'm stressed out, I'm anxious, and I don't know why. And that used to be my biggest thing. I don't know why. And there is a difference between leadership and management. You can be trained on the job to manage, like you can, that is possible. But leadership is formal, it is informal, it is intentional, it has a purpose. You have to continue to learn about it and grow and do different things to hear it, so you can see yourself more and decide what type of leader you're going to be. And she asked me one time, she said, you know, you're a nurse, you always listen to people. What do you listen to? She asked me several questions. What are you used to listening to? I'm used to listening to somebody's problems, because that's what helped me decide how to manage and care for this patient, by hearing their problems. And, you know, one thing that stood out from that is I have not been at the bedside since 2012, but my listening never changed. I never changed that. And so I started to think about, I'm not listening for people's problems, because you know what that makes me want to do? Solve them. That is my natural reaction. When someone says, like you said, Kim, I'm not doing good here. Okay, what can I do? Okay, what can I do? Sometimes it's just that the person literally, and I'm going to be, you know, frank and transparent, they just want you to shut up and listen. They don't want you to do anything. They just need to spill that out. In this spilling out, because I'm an easy person to talk to, she asked me one more question. She said, so is the stress yours or theirs? What are you feeling? And how can you empower yourself to be in a room with someone who may be going through a lot of things? You cannot absorb their issues, but what you can do is give it, how do you strategically give it back to them? And that's how I started to really learn about that therapeutic communication and that's I grabbed that from the behavioral health world, and saying, if Kim says she's great, just like how you just described, she says she's great, doing great. What does great mean? And allowing Kim to define herself. I'm not putting words in her mouth. I am listening. And when I was able to really start to do that, and then I had another friend who's so outrageous. She's so crazy. She is always about, you have to manage up. Sometimes you just do. Sometimes you just have to do it, because that's just how things are going to go. And you just have to be comfortable with that. So I'm taking all that in, and I started really practicing these things. And the people that I was having the most difficulty connecting to, what I realized was something was going on. Something else was going on. And then when I was quiet and I let them talk, they started to reveal everything. I talked I put it as an intention, be neutral. How can you come from a place of neutrality? No judgment, and stop talking about yourself. Sometimes people don't want to hear that. They already know about you. You talk a lot. People, are connected to you naturally. Just be quiet. It's okay. When I started to really listen to people, those people were telling me everything. Everything about themselves, how they like to interact. I know when we went home for COVID, some people were more happy to be at home because they really didn't like coming into a busy workplace. They were able to be quiet. Even my own, some of my leadership team also began, and I'm sitting here going, that's the equation. You just be quiet sometimes, but you have to learn, because it's loud. And I had a very loud mind, because my brain likes to problem solve, and I go through. And then, so what I started saying to myself is, what are things that you can't solve? And I had a leader who told me, a senior leader, she said, you don't have to respond in every meeting. And I was like, what do you mean? How do people know that you're paying attention? She was like, it doesn't matter what they think, if you're paying attention or not. All that matters is that you got out of that meeting what's supposed to be getting out of that meeting. put your pen down, sit there, be quiet, hear it. And when do you listen to it best? I was like, I listen best when I'm outside or I'm just being by myself. She was like, okay, you can press record and you can play that back and then you can come back and ask questions later. And I figured out I'm not an on the spot decision maker. If I make a decision on the spot, no is the first one that comes up. I immediately hear when something, no. But I need to take time to analyze why I'm saying no so that when I present it back to someone, I help them understand my perspective. It doesn't become a conflict of interest. It becomes no to that way. But I also believe in creating a path to yes and allowing someone else to have their input. But how do we get to where we're going if it won't work this way, which was so much easier than when I was exhausted of telling people what to do. I do not like to tell folks what to do.
Right.
We are adults. We are very much grown. I like for people to decide what they want to do because it helps them develop communication, therapeutic or intentional listening. Did you hear the directions given in the meeting? So you decided to come up with this. And I grew up in a very hard way. So the things that come out of my mouth sometimes are very blunt. But that ain't how everybody likes to hear. So I had to learn.
We love you, Alicia.
I can't, my mama would be
I
like,
hear you. I was born and raised in Jersey. I get that piece.
yeah, my mom would be like, does that
Be
make
a
sense to
silent
you?
listener. Totally.
It's hard too. So when you have someone saying, I'm used to this. Does that make sense to you? Go back and try that again. And then you go back and you try it again. But you know what? Everybody, that is offensive. I learned that's not a good way to lead. And so by saying, what do you think? At first, I thought it was corny, honestly. At first, it was but I was like, no, I'm going to stick to it. People say this works. I'm going to stick to it. But when I really started to believe in it and practice it, what I saw was opportunities opened up for me to be a part of decision making. People they felt relaxed around me because I was relaxed. I'm a type A, uptight type person. When I learned to relax, I had to go to the chiropractor. This is a real true story. I had to go to the chiropractor. My back hurt when I tried to relax. And when I took the x-rays, it showed how much curvature was not in my back. I had joint problems. I had all this other stuff because I sit like this. I'm always intense. And the more I learned how to relax and listen and be therapeutic with it, the more I felt as a nurse, and the art of nursing and the art of incorporating mental health and letting people be allowed to say, I just did this last week. I went back and someone asked me a question and I was like, no. And I was very grumpy. I went back. Hey, I was grumpy on Wednesday. I apologize. Is there something that you wanted to talk about? Wednesday wasn't a good day. This person was very open. What happened? I'm being overwhelmed right now by people asking me to do a lot of things at the end of the year, and I'm kind of burned out. And her response was, I did need your help. But when you say that, now I need to go back and think about what specifically do I need your help with? Because I just have a lot of questions new to the job. And I was like, I understand that. So let's write down all of your questions, email them to me, and let me prepare. Because that's what's going to work best for me.
But that's also, again, you look at that's recognizing your own accountability.
Right.
People see that will stick with somebody, and you can hold a lot of trust and be very empathetic to somebody who holds their accountability in that. And silence is very powerful. It's a very powerful message if used the right way. And you will get so much more out of a conversation with others by being silent. It also helps you as the person listening put thought-provoking questions in your head in a way where you may not have if you continue to react to the situation and to the conversation. I just want to point out too, Leah had made a comment that when people say that they're fine, if they're all lying, it's like not true. And I have to go back to that fine word. And I know I've said this before, but And I literally got this from the movie, The Italian Job. And I swear by it because they used the word fine. It was an acronym for freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. And I was like, holy, that is literally fine. Because anytime we're all like, I'm fine, we are struggling. Like it's not, fine is not okay. And so I think about that. I just had to say that into there. But
I just actually wanted to contribute some additional feedback in terms of what Alicia was talking about, being overwhelmed and saying yes to things or no to things. What I have learned just over the past year is that no is a complete sentence. Mm-hmm. And it is absolutely okay to say no, because I was feeling the same way Alicia was feeling for a while. Everyone was coming to me and asking me for help and questions and support and collaboration. And it's like, yes, yes, yes. But then I recognized that for me to be able to serve at my highest level and make the biggest impact possible, mm-hmm. I had to stop saying yes. I had mm-hmm. to be very selective in what I said yes to. And when I said no, I always would leave the door open that, no, it's not the right time right now. Mm-hmm. I see value in what you're asking me, but right now, my heart and my soul is going into this right now, but let's keep those conversations open. It's okay to say no. For those people who maybe are sharing that they're not okay, that they're being open and honest. And Alicia had made a comment about absorbing other people's problems. One of the things that I teach in another training that I do is that you only have so much room in your, oh my goodness, in your arms to hold on to so many pillows. So say, for instance, you're going to Bed Bath & Beyond, you see that beautiful pillow wall of all the shapes and sizes, and you want every single one of them, but you know that you can only fit 5 pillows in your arms. Think of those pillows as problems. Your problems or someone else's problems. If you want to pick up that shiny red pillow, you have to get rid of maybe the golden pillow that's in your arms. So many times when people come to me and say, I'm struggling and I have this, and this, I say, how many of those things that you're holding on to are your pillows? And which pillow can you put down so that you can pick up another one and not feel so overwhelmed? And then the last thing that I wanted to mention as well is, again, when you're asking people, are they okay? A way that you can actually, if someone responds, it says, I'm fine, or, I'm great. Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your emotions? And if someone says that they're at a 5 or a 6 or a 7, not challenging them to figure out how they're going to get up to a 10, mm-hmm. but asking them, what's one small thing that you can do? If you're at a 5 right now, how can we get you to a 6? And having it not be so overwhelming for an individual. And that all comes with intentional listening.
Yeah.
Because we're so conditioned to say, hey, I'm fine, I'm great, how are you? And then gloss over it. We are not, newsflash, we are not fine. We are not fine. There's many of us who are not fine. I get those comments and messages every day.
Right.
But what we must do is when we're in the position and we feel courageous enough and safe enough with our own mental well-being, and step forward and say, yeah, I'm your leader, but I'm having a hard time. It makes all the difference in the world to give permission to other people to come forward and say, I'm not okay.
So do you all think this? I thought about this when you said that. Do you think people find it difficult to put themselves first? I had some information shared with me, or details shared with me one time about this person didn't know I'd already been a leader in a previous life, a manager, and had some leadership roles in a previous life. And they said, when you step into leadership, that's when everybody else has to come before you. You can't put yourself first. And I was just like, okay. Also, you don't have to argue with people. Some people like to go back and forth. That's how they believe. Just accept that. But know when you walk away and you're doing that intentional listening, to know that when you walk away, what is what is right and what is the wrong way for yourself. I know that that was the wrong way for me because I actually burned out putting others before myself as a manager. That was one of the wrong things that I did when I had that opportunity. And really considering the fact that if you don't do things for yourself, if you don't have somewhere, an outlet or something to do that really gives your energy back and you're able to be okay with yourself, you will not be successful as a team member, a team leader, whoever that is. It makes it very, very hard. But I think that I know I used to define myself with how many things can I hold? How many things can I do? Some people, call it micromanager. It's a very negative word when you think about it, or controlling. I had someone tell me one time, you don't like to be told, what to do. No, I like to control the things that I can control for myself because you guys are going to pile it onto me. So when I can manage that, it helps you manage everything else around me so I can operate in my role. But so it used to be very, very difficult, Kim, for me to say, this doesn't belong to me. Here you go. This is yours. This is actually what I need to work on. And what I found out was 98% of the time, it was never anything in the present. It was some old something that I was still holding on to from 20 years ago. And once I had to sit and go, okay, go through the index of memories. What is it?
It's not, I love it.
It's not Kim. It's not. But what I found was I was holding on to people's burdens from so long ago because I was a friend, I was a sister, a daughter, and I would listen. And I listened, and then I became empathetic in a really different, connected way, where I began to not only absorb that energy, but now we're very close, Noelle, because you've told me all of your problems, and I want the best for you. I want the best for you. I want the best for you. And myself just shriveled all up in the background, and I was left with nothing but exhaustion. I was left being tired, confused, anxious, depressed, all over the place. And one day I just said, who is this person? What happened to me? Yes. What happened to the path that I was on? I've helped everybody else.
Yes, they suck the life out of you.
Yes, and I think it does. And I think when you sit there and you can listen and then go dump this out, or I don't like dump, I give it back. Here, Noelle, you told me about your problem. And now I'm going to give it back to you because I want to ask you, what are you going to do first? Like you said, Kim, what's your priority? I remember I used to have like panic attacks if the things on my to-do list didn't get done. And one day someone just said, okay, but you act like you were sitting in the bed eating bonbons all day. What did you do? Okay, you didn't do the things on the list, but you did all this other stuff. Why can't you accept and quantify that was success for today?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
go ahead.
Kind
of tie that in, Alicia, to your quote unquote type A personality that you referenced earlier today. I invite you to kind of maybe even reframe that a little bit. And I talk about this in my training a lot, that we should really adopt a person-focused or person-centered language in the workplace, and actually in every place. Because when you referred to yourself earlier as I'm type A, well, no, you're not. No. You are a person who lives with type A tendencies. Mm-hmm. And those tendencies are X, Y, and Z. The same thing goes with, mental health and substance use. I'm not an alcoholic. I am a person who lives successfully with alcohol use disorder for 11 years. If I were living with bipolar, I wouldn't be bipolar. I would be a person who lives with bipolar. So it's about, changing the way we think about ourselves, because sometimes type A can come up as negative. It could be positive or it can be negative. Yeah. But the way you were talking, it was like, oh, I'm type A. You're a person. I see you as a person and you have those tendencies, but that doesn't define you as who you are. Many times we define ourselves by a label. Yep. And if that label is stigmatizing, then every single time we say I'm type A, or every single time we say I'm bipolar or I'm an alcoholic,
Mm-hmm.
all these negative things come up. So it's listening, it's understanding, and then it's also okay to say to someone, you know, do you mind if I give you some feedback? I want you to invite you to think of yourself instead of type A. Think of yourself as a person with XYZ personality traits.
And you're right, Kim. And that is something that I always have to work on and learn. And I had a lot of labels. One day I wrote them down. There was like 68 of the things that I would call myself.
I'd like to
Seriously.
see that list.
Honestly,
Oh
and I was like, you know what? I couldn't do something one day. When I have a mental block, I'm like, what is this blocking me? Like, what am I, so I just write, and I started to write. And the first thing I thought about was, you're not going to get this done in time. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to write down all the things that I think of myself right now that are negative. And I started writing, and it was 68 things on the list that I was thinking,
Alisha.
I don't know what I'm doing. This is not going to end up good. I'm going to be, a fail. And I looked at that, and as soon as I was done, I did the project. Like as soon as I finished that list, and I was like, this is the most horrendous thing that I cannot believe that I sit here and this is how I think of myself. But on the outside, I think I'm a good person, but not according to internally, I feel like I'm a bad person. And when I saw it on paper, I was like, oh, get your life, girl. That is not you. Who is this person?
Yes.
Like this is so.
Every single one of those. Is it true? Is it true? No, it's not. True. It's just
no. So you have to unlock those doors and throw them right out, because that is, if you don't have that thought-provoking mentality as you do, think about the others that don't. Those are all locked, closed doors, and they stay within them, not knowing how to get out. And I'm gonna put Kim on the spot for a second in a good way.
Thank you.
With me, because I had a very difficult time transitioning from what I went through, what happened to me when I left my career to where I'm at now, and therapy. And I kept saying, well, I kept talking about medication and how there's a balance between therapy and meds. And she said to me, why do you keep telling me that you're on meds? And I said, I don't know, because I feel like I had to validate that, like I had to validate what I thought was like my crazy, right? I had a mental breakdown. I was in the emergency room. I had a panic attack. My PTSD was awful. I was in extensive therapy. It extended beyond months. And because I harbored everything within, because leaders, we wear this armor and we're there for everybody else. And for even before COVID, I was a hot disaster. And when I stepped down, I said, I can't be the leader that I know that I am for myself. And I can't lead this team the way that they need to be led. And there was things that I needed to do, but I sat there and I took a step back and I was like, why do I feel that I have to tell people that I am seeing a therapist and I'm on a different variety of medications to get myself together to a point where I can be me again? And I didn't have an answer for that. And there's no reason for that, and I was closing so many doors thinking I had this like disability, and I was just going through a rough patch.
Would you tell me if you were on blood pressure medication? Would you tell me if you were on high cholesterol medication, but you felt that need? There's no, what I say to everything that you've gone through is bravo.
Yes.
Bravo.
I think we say those things, we overshare. I hear people say that a lot, because actually it's almost like you are disconnected. Like, Sigmund Freud, the ego, when I really started to open those doors to study what those things really were and understand that my mind and my brain are two different things. It's a disconnection from yourself. It's like you're telling, even though it might be Noelle I'm talking to, but I'm really talking to myself by saying, I'm in therapy and I take medications. It's like, do you hear it, little self? I always used to say that I believe everyone that's going through something has their tiny voice inside of them that says, we can be better. And you grow that tiny voice until you reconnect. And that alignment of yourself internally and externally, because you don't see what other people see. Other people think you're a rock star. Okay, that's not how I feel. But how are you connecting that? And I think that is really, honestly, the foundation of creating professional partnerships. The first question I would ask anybody when they're ready to take this is a huge step. I mean,
so the balance of having professional partnerships, especially during these times right now. This is a time where we all need it the most. And how do we get together as a team and as a group to define that for not only yourself, but for each other? So,
and if you say, if it's not even time, okay, what do you need to do though? If that's what you want, that's what you, there was a time that I shut down everything and I was like, I'm just focusing on myself. I can't take on questions right now. I can't take on I can only do the work that's assigned to me, and I can't do anything else because I need to work on me.
And that's so important, Alicia. I think so many people feel a sense of like they're letting other people down if they just don't take on all these projects. Or they feel like they're just not good enough if they have to say no to something. Well, I worked for a vice president once who said, you know what, if I have a project that I need to give to you, that I want to give to you, it is up to you to tell me if you have room on your plate for it. And if you don't, it's up to you to tell me what priorities need to shift and why, to be able to allow this new project to come onto your plate. And I was like, wow, I guess before that, I was like, I guess I never knew I had the power to say no. But why take something on if you know that you can't give it 100%? And at the end of the day, the cup that needs to be full for you to be able to give your best self to someone else is empty. It doesn't make sense to keep piling stuff on and not be honest and say, you can say no in a very graceful, diplomatic, professional way. If you back it up with, here is the why. So kudos to you, Alicia, for saying, you know what, no to certain things. I am most important, because if I don't take care of me, I can't make the impact that I am on this planet to make.
Yeah.
Love it. And I'm not seeing, I don't know if my chat group is frozen. I see a few coming in, but it's like very delayed. So I'll wait to see what Rala says to that. I think we did get offline, but we're back online now. And Alicia, you had mentioned something earlier that I wanted to touch base on, and that was about how to avoid support exhaustion. Tell me a little bit about that. Your facial expression was.
If you, I know.
What is support exhaustion? Walk me through what that is. Give me an example.
Support exhaustion is, to me, for real, it's not creating a boundary as to how much support you're going to have to weigh out how much support you're going to give. It could be one person or it could be 10 people. If you're in a leadership position or coaching position, now we have informal leaders. If you're in that type of position, you can be exhausted from giving someone support. And what happens to me is, this is how I know when too much is too much. When I talk to you like you're one of my kids, it's too much. If I turn around and I say, I don't understand why you keep coming back to me with the same question over and over again about things that you have control of. I know that I'm giving you too much support. And I think that people don't know when they are exhausted what exhaustion looks like. I did a presentation with some CEOs, a group of CEOs from Texas, and I described to them the 5 levels of burnout. Exhaustion, you're in the red, all your signs, and listening to everything that's happening around you. When you say, when people start saying, I'm tired, you got to listen to that voice. When you say it out loud, when you're saying it out loud, I'm tired. I'm tired. You're more than tired, because now it's too late
by then.
Now your brain is pulling that out. So you have to say, like, you have to be so strategic with the support that you have. If you have something going on in your family first. You got to take care of them. If friends have things going on, I had a friend that was getting a divorce. No, never again. That was a life lesson experience about going through somebody's divorce with them. Because I don't want to go through a divorce, and I wasn't. But when I took on that divorce exhaustion from her, we were in a divorce together, and that was way too much support. It is knowing when your win is, like you said, Kim, being okay with saying no, but also thinking about what type of support can I give this person? Some people, they might just say, I used to laugh because I would hear my grandmother say, I'll pray for her. That was her level of support.
Yes.
At that moment, that's all she felt like she could do for that other person. I cannot, sometimes these problems are so much bigger. And even as a leader, I would often have people tell me about their custody issues, about all these things.
Oh
I
goodness.
can't be that person for you, not because I don't want to, but because I got my own bag of junk to deal with, and I can't do this in the moment with you because you're disconnecting from something, and I can't go through that with you. But that support exhaustion is a real thing, and people don't realize I'm from down south, so we have Krispy Kreme, so they have a hot sign on when they got hot donuts. And you can come in and get your hot donuts. Why is your hot sign always on? Then you never get to clean up. Then you never get those donuts, give the other donuts a chance to sell. So they get old. It creates massive problems. Turn your hot sign off. Sometimes I ain't hot.
Turn your
Turn
hot
it off.
sign off.
Turn the hot sign off.
Turn it off.
Oh
It's like the easy button at Staples.
That is,
Yeah, turn it
is
off.
priceless.
You can get old donuts. Old donuts to me are really good. You can warm them up. Your old donut might be something that helped you, and you give that little parable or story to somebody else, and that's it. That's all I got for my grandmother. It was praying for him. That's it. That's all I got for you. She turned her hot sign off. So yeah, you gotta learn to do that.
We are actually nearing towards the end of the show already. I can't believe it's almost 1:00. Any piece of advice, any thoughts that you can send out to those that are listening today and that will watch the show pre-recorded?
If you're not where you want to be or where you think you should be, sit down and consider how you're going to get there, and stop and just sit down and think about, how do I get there? It's not a failure. You're in a crossroads and at an intersection in your life where you're going to have to make some quick and important decisions about where you're trying to go.
Love it. Rollis, I need a clap for that. It's got to be out there. Oh, Kim, give me some of your wise words of wisdom.
Well, I guess, my wise words of wisdom is that it is absolutely okay to not be okay, whether you are in a CEO position, a director position, a VP position, or if you're in an entry-level position. We are all people, and it is absolutely okay to not be okay. More importantly, it is absolutely okay to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Zero shame. Zero shame.
Right.
Absolutely.
We have to be okay stepping forward. And if you are a leader and you need help, I encourage you to model what asking for help looks like in your organization. And you will see a flock of people asking for help behind you because they've seen your armor come off and they see the human person behind you. So
you're leading a movement, and that's exactly what it's about. So thank you so much for that. And for those of you that don't know, for those of you that are not connected to Kim or Alicia, please connect with them on LinkedIn. There's a lot of other valuable work that they have done with their professions and in their career. I highly recommend reaching out to them. And this is a great segue into this afternoon. I will be holding a private event that will be launching my program for leaders. And the program is designed for leaders specifically, thank you, Kim, to retain new graduate nurses. But the core of the program is about the leader. And a lot of what we discuss now in this course has to do with the leader, the vitality, the strength, getting into the core of the leader so they can be who they know that they are, get to the next level of leadership in order to succeed in the workplace and with their staff. And I look forward to that. If you haven't received an invite, please DM me. I would love to have you attend. It's a free private event that's going on today, and that'll be today at 3 p.m. East Coast time. So stay tuned, and huge shout out and applause to Alicia and Kim, my two favorite people ever. And yes, I'm clapping for you.
We're clapping for you. You're going to have a great event.
Yes, this was great. Yes, this was awesome, Noelle.
Than I am having my webinar later. I'm telling you.
You're going to do well. This is great.
I'm excited. I'm very excited. I think a lot of the work that we're all doing is going to be successful because we're doing it together. We are all building a network together as a team. And LinkedIn has been probably like the grace of God for me. And I'll tell you, this goes out to Rollis. If it wasn't for Rollis, all of us would not be where we are at today.
That's correct.
He is literally the core. He's the glue that brought us all in.
Absolutely.
So Rollis, for better or worse, till death do us part, you are stuck with us.
He's a good picker. He's a good picker.
You guys are great to be stuck with.
So thank you, everyone. Have an awesome Wednesday. Enjoy your everyone. I hope the rest of your week turns out really well, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks.
See y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Rollis, you are that crazy glue, that wood glue, whatever kind of glue, the nail glue.
The all glue. That's awesome.
All glue that can't get you.
Appreciate you guys. No, it's a pleasure. Definitely a pleasure. All right, so you guys will do a quick little pose.
Sure.
Okay. Oh, I like that. That's a good one. Very good.
Okay, did you guys, are we recording?
Is it okay to cut it off, Joe?
Wait a minute.
Okay.
It was hard. A lot